Pope Francis has died.
In today's episode, I'll be discussing the death of Pope Francis from the perspective of a scientist, as well as events that may have led to his death. Doctors said a stroke killed him. This is the Couch Connect, the pod where we talk about the science and art in everyday life experiences. My name is Joab. When we think of world leaders, we often imagine them as larger than life, often invincible. And some people probably thought that about Pope Francis. But beneath the papal robes and the global influence that he wielded, there lay a human body, vulnerable like anyone else's. And on the 21st of April in the year 2025, Pope Francis, who was born in Argentina as Jorge Mario Bergoglio in 1936, suffered a cerebral stroke. A stroke, also known as a cerebrovascular accident, occurs when blood flow to a certain part of the brain is blocked or when a blood vessel in the brain bursts. In the case where blood flow is blocked, we call that an ischemic stroke, while in the case where a blood vessel bursts, doctors call that a hemorrhagic stroke. In Pope Francis's case, it was reportedly a massive ischemic stroke. Think of your brain as a complex power grid, and I'm trying to break this down here. If a key cable gets severed, entire neighborhoods would probably go dark. In this case, those neighborhoods were regions of Pope Francis's brain that controlled consciousness, heart rate regulation, and breathing rhythm. Now, this bit of information on heart rate regulation is important, and we're going to come back to it in a moment. But let's go back to strokes. Why is a stroke so dangerous? I'm going to try to explain this. When brain cells are deprived of oxygen for even a few minutes, they begin to die. And we call this process, or in a process known as neuronal necrosis. Unfortunately, this damage is often irreversible. Depending on the location and the severity, a stroke can cause paralysis, a coma, and or even death. According to medical reports, in Pope Francis's case, the stroke led to rapid loss of consciousness. He slipped into a coma. A coma is basically a state where the brain is no longer processing external stimuli, but some internal systems will continue functioning. It's kind of like imagining your phone suddenly shutting off and then it won't reboot, no matter how many buttons you try pressing. That's basically what happens to a human body during a coma from a major stroke. The operating system of the brain basically crashes. Pope Francis didn't just suffer a stroke and a coma. He also experienced what doctors call irreversible cardiocirculatory collapse. Often you'll hear doctors or people in general calling it heart failure. This refers to failure of the heart or a cardiac arrest and the circulatory system's inability to maintain blood flow to vital organs. In some cases, this process is reversible, but in severe cases, this process becomes irreversible and no amount of CPR, medication, or machinery can bring the human system back online. To break this down further, think of it like a city's main water pump shutting down. So like I live in the city of Toronto, and let's imagine that the main water pumps in downtown Toronto shut down. The pipes may still be there, but if the pump stops working and can't be restarted, and there's no way to replace it, then every house in the city of Toronto is going to run dry permanently. Physiologically or scientifically, here's what happens. The heart normally has electrical signals, which are non-voluntary, meaning you don't control them. So what happens is that the heart's electrical signals will become erratic, and we call this ventricular fibrillation. Blood pressure will then drop, and organ perfusion will stop. Organ perfusion is the delivery of oxygen-rich blood to organs. If there's no oxygen being delivered to organs and the cells, then the cells will begin to die. And this happens within minutes. And eventually, multiple organ failure sets in. But how does all this connect back to the stroke? Remember that bit of information that we said earlier on heart rate regulation? The stroke likely damaged Pope Francis's brainstem. And the brainstem is a region of the brain that controls involuntary actions like breathing, like your heart rate. Once that is compromised, once the brainstem is compromised, then the heart can't function properly, even if it's structurally healthy. And to give an example here, let's imagine we're in an airport. So it's like taking out the control tower at an airport. Even if you have planes already on the runway that are ready to take off, even if they're ready, they can't take off safely. The brain was the Pope's control tower, and once it went dark, his heart soon followed. But while the stroke and heart failure were the final tipping points, Pope Francis's passing was shaped by years of complex health challenges for the past couple of years, and let's break this down. So number one, Pope Francis has been diagnosed with double pneumonia in the past couple of months. We also call pneumonia bilateral pneumonia. It's a type of pneumonia that inflames both lungs, filling them with fluid and severely reducing oxygen intake. And you want to equate this to trying to breathe through waterlogged sponges instead of lungs. Number two, he also had bronchospasm episodes over the past couple of months. Bronchospasm episodes are sudden contractions of airway muscles, and this make it difficult to breathe. It becomes actually extremely difficult. And this is common in chronic lung conditions. And the analogy here is like you're trying to sip air through a straw, but that straw is pinched. So as you try pulling in air, basically no air can come in, or it's extremely difficult to pull in air through a pinched straw. Number three, as a young man, he had some lung surgery. Now, what I've read is that Pope Francis had a portion of his right lung removed due to a severe infection. This removed his pulmonary reserve, and meaning that it is possible that this could have contributed to his body being unable to fight off respiratory illnesses. Number four, and there's a summary of many conditions that he had. Pope Francis had a bunch of chronic illnesses. He had hypertension, he had diabetes. You know what hypertension is and diabetes is. And he also had what we call bronchiectasis. Bronchiectasis is a condition whereby damaged airways cause mucus buildup and recurring infections. And what I say here is that, chronic conditions are like cracks in a dam. One crack or two cracks, the dam might hold. But under pressure with a lot of cracks, the whole structure is going to give way. Which is what brings me to point number 5. Age. At 88, the body's immune system is naturally weaker, a process we call immunosenescence. His kidneys were reportedly in a decline too, and this could be a warning sign of multiple organ stress. At some point, doctors even feared sepsis. Sepsis is the body's overwhelming response to infection, which can trigger what we call a fatal cytokine storm. A fatal cytokine storm is when the immune system basically goes haywire. I'm going to finish off here by saying, in medicine, they often say that death is not a moment, but a process. And in Pope Francis's death, that process was dignified. He had the best medical care possible. And it was also deeply human because he was just but that, a human. May the man rest in peace. This is the Couch Connect, and my name is Joab.